How's it going, everyone? It's Harvey from Weather SpongeBob. Today is April 1st, 2021, and obviously, as we head into the month of April, as we head deeper into the spring, I'm gonna give an in-depth forecast for you guys in the United States. Will it be drier than average in your location? Will it be more moist than average? Will you see warmer or cooler than average temperatures? I'll answer all those questions in this video for your specific location. But before I begin, make sure to subscribe. If you want to see more weather-related content, make sure to like if you like this video, and make sure to turn on post notifications if you want to see even more weather-related content. So let's begin by taking a look at the current La Nina threshold or sea surface temperatures, and you see that over the past several months, ever since the month of May, we've been in a consistent pattern where sea surface temperatures in the Nino 3.4 region, which is the region that's critical in determining whether or not we are in an El Nino, neutral, or La Nina threshold. We've been in well below average sea surface temperatures ever since the month of May. And in terms of how long we've really been in a La Nina, technically since pretty much August 2020, we've been in a La Nina pattern, which pretty much means that the sea surface temperatures are below the 0.5 degrees Celsius threshold. So as a result, we've been seeing a La Nina pattern ever since August 2020, and it was one of the big contributing factors that brought a major hurricane season for a lot of us, for pretty much the entire Atlantic, the most, in fact, in history. So this La Nina is quite strong, and it's been lasting for several months now, and that's going to be huge in determining what type of April we're going to see in the United States. As if we continue to see a La Nina, this will be the typical pattern we would see, where we'd see a slight jet stream dip. We'd see typically cooler and more moist than average conditions right around the Pacific Northwest, and then it's going to be and in a La Nina phase, it's typically dry and warm towards the southern United States, which extends to even the Southwest, such as Arizona and New Mexico, all the way to the panhandle of Florida and throughout Florida in general. And we do typically see more moist conditions than usual right around the Ohio River Valley. However, this La Nina pattern will also coincide with a positive Arctic oscillation, and as a result of this, when an Arctic oscillation is in the positive phase, we typically see the jet stream dip less into the United States, and that'll be key in determining how much moisture when determining the temperature in the United States, because obviously what drives a lot of moisture during the spring is high instability, and when there isn't a ton of jet stream dips, then that means there's less likely of a chance to have a lot of convection or unstable air to really create a more moist and typical April for a lot of the United States. And that is going to be huge in determining what type of April we're going to see. And the La Nina phase coinciding with a positive Arctic oscillation that's forecast to occur over the next several weeks will mean that it's going to be difficult to forecast which will exactly win out. However, the current consensus from the climate computer models is that it's gonna be a more dry than usual winter, as it expects the positive Arctic oscillation to kind of outweigh the fact that there's going to be a La Nina phase. So if you're expecting more moist conditions in the Ohio River Valley as a result of a La Nina phase, I wouldn't put your faith on that just too much, because again, we are going to be in a positive Arctic oscillation, and the computer models are currently disagreeing that there's going to be much moisture at all for a lot of the eastern half of the United States. As if we take a look at the current CFS model, which is forecasting the amount of precipitation, or the anomalous precipitation amounts, the precipitation anomaly, and you see that throughout the eastern half of the United States, the computer model is expecting most of the United States to have drier than average conditions, where we're seeing precipitation amounts well below average throughout the eastern half of the United States. And the only real area that's getting a little bit more moisture than average is right around the northwest United States, right around Montana, and this even extends to North Dakota. However, it's a very small portion of the United States, not affecting a large population. So as a result, most of the United States will experience a much is expected to experience a much drier April than what you typically see, and this will coincide again with the Arctic oscillation I just mentioned. Since there's going to be a positive Arctic oscillation, we're going to see less jet stream dips to induce very convective activity throughout the United States, and as a result, we're going to see less precipitation in general throughout the United States as forecasted by the CFS model. And if we take a look at the recent temperature changes in the Nino 3.4 region to see if maybe somehow in April we could get out of the La Nina phase. If we take a look, if we compare the temperature difference between January 2021 to February 2021, you see that there's barely a difference in terms of the Nino 3.4 sea surface temperature, where in January 2021, it's pretty much right around 1 degree Celsius departure from average in the below average side, while in February 2021 you see that the temperature really only rose 0.06 degrees Celsius between that month time frame. So as a result, it doesn't seem so. This really shows that there isn't going to be any. I don't expect any drastic changes over the next 2 months, or at least a month from February, to really completely change the current La Nina or El Nino or equatorial pattern that for April, to really make drastic changes to the forecast. And it's unlikely that we're going to see the sea surface temperatures rise so drastically to a point where the entire pattern changes for April. So we should expect a La Nina phase extending into April, while in the months beyond April, it could change maybe to a neutral phase, but currently the National Weather Service is still leaning towards bringing mainly a La Nina threat. But however, in the months ahead of April, that could change. But since this video is focusing on the forecast in April, it's pretty much guaranteed that we're going to see a La Nina phase for April. So you should expect at least somewhere around these conditions. However, again, like the computer model, the CFS model suggests, do not expect it to be more moist than average in the Ohio River Valley, as it does expect a little bit less jet stream dips as a result of an Arctic oscillation. And I think another point that's interesting is that if we take a look at the sea surface temperature anomaly in the Atlantic side of things, right around the Gulf of Mexico and extending to just off the coast of the southeast, you see that for the most part, the sea surface temperatures are below average, and while it won't make a huge effect in terms of the weather in the eastern half of the United States, that temperature departure from average is still enough to at least slow down maybe some convective activity right around the Gulf Coast and pretty much all along the Gulf Coast, and it might make it. And while 1 degree Celsius might not seem like a huge departure from average, if you really think about it, that 1 degree Celsius could completely change the outcome of a hurricane season. Just think about that. Let's say if most of the Atlantic was all in the blue in the most active months of the hurricane season, such as August and September, we'd be talking about barely any hurricanes. So we can't underestimate the sea surface temperatures off the Atlantic just because they're 1 degree Celsius departure, only 1 degree Celsius departure from average, because that can make a huge effect. And I think the effect that this cooler than average water will bring is that there's overall going to be less convective activity. The air along the surface is going to have less energy overall to hold much more water vapor, and as a result, we're going to see less convection, less precipitation, because air temperature won't be warm enough to hold enough water vapor to create a very humid, unstable, and very moist environment throughout the eastern half of the United States. And I think that is also another contributing factor of why the United States, majority of the United States, is expected to be cooler than average for the most part. Now, there's more to April than just the precipitation amounts. There's also temperature you guys are probably wondering about too, because I know some people might want to see that next maybe major snowstorm before we head into the summer months, or just want to feel like they're in summer already with higher temperatures. And based off of what the CFS model is forecasting at this point, it seems like majority of the United States will have temperatures well above average, especially in the extreme northern portions of the United States, where you see that a lot of the Dakotas will be much warmer than average, and the temperature anomaly departure is just huge in the northern states, which includes Minnesota, North Carolina. This includes South Dakota as well, and even extending towards Maine. And then for the southeast, it seems like the temperatures are currently forecasted to mainly stay right around average, but it's leaning slightly more to maybe the slightly above average temperature side of things. So do expect a little bit slightly warmer than average April for a lot of you guys in the southeast. And then extending the Midwest, obviously it's expected to be much warmer than average, as shown by the 2 meter temperature anomaly in terms of Celsius, where a lot of the Midwest is expected to have temperatures right around 2 degrees above average in terms of Celsius. So keep that in mind throughout the Midwest. And then along the Pacific, it's pretty much the only region in the United States that's expected to be cooler than average. And this sort of makes sense because we are still in a La Nina phase, while the La Nina phase isn't going to make as major of an effect, especially when it comes to precipitation this time around headed into April. It's still going to bring that Pacific jet throughout the Northwest Pacific, and as a result, we're going to see a little bit more cloudy conditions than typical throughout the Pacific Northwest, a little bit more convection, and as a result, that means that less shortwave radiation will hit the surface along the Pacific coast. So as a result, temperatures should be below average for the most part, and it should be cooler than average along the Pacific for this winter. So definitely be prepared for that. But for most of the United States, it's going to feel a lot like spring, as it seems like spring will come much earlier than what you typically see, because especially last winter, I remember last spring, especially in April, still feeling like winter a lot of the times, but it seems like and by the way, I live in the Northeast, but it seems like it won't be the case this time around, as most of the United States will experience temperatures well above normal. So the leaves should come out a little bit earlier as a result of this, and you guys should experience just very nice weather overall throughout the United States for April. And because not only is it going to be much drier than average for most of the United States, so you'll be able to enjoy the sun, but the temperatures will also be well above average throughout the United States. So definitely a time to enjoy it, be outside this April. While there still could be some changes here and there, it might not be 100% correct, this forecast. It's more likely than not we're going to see a much warmer and drier April for a lot of the United States. And taking a look at my forecast map to see which exact areas will experience the warmest conditions, or at least the most warm conditions in terms of departure from the typical temperature average, you see that a lot of the northern United States will experience temperatures well above average, well beyond their threshold or average. And you see that a lot of the northern United States will experience some much warmest temperatures than most. And you see that extending the south, it's also going to be, I'd say, slightly warmer than average, but nowhere near to extent as, let's say, what the northern United States is going to experience. And then along the coast of the Pacific, it's expected to be cooler and a little bit more moist than average because that Pacific jet is going to move through, and it's expected to be mild and moist right around Montana, Idaho, and even portions of Washington and Oregon. So keep that in mind throughout the Pacific Northwest out, that it should be a little bit more moist than what you typically see, but I don't think it's going to be anything, let's say, major, where it's going to cause a major flooding threat, as I expect it to be just slightly more moist and maybe just slightly more cooler than average, but not anything, I'd say, major, where it's going to be where you're going to really notice the temperature departure in the cooler threshold. So as a result, do not expect the conditions throughout the Pacific Northwest to be much different than what you typically see. I just listed cool and moist because it's going to be just ever so slightly cooler and moist throughout the Pacific Northwest, and I want you guys to at least be aware of that. But for most of the United States, it's going to be a very nice April for you guys, and I hope you guys enjoy it. I'm certainly going to enjoy it. And to be honest, while I do love the winter, I'm ready for spring, and I just want to lay out in the sun and just enjoy April, and I just want summer to come real soon. And fortunately, based off what we're seeing with the La Nina pattern, the Arctic oscillation, and the CFS climate model, it seems like we're going to get just that, very warm temperatures and very dry at the same time, and it's going to feel like summer in some days for a lot of you guys in the United States. But yeah, guys, I guess that's it for this video. I thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather area calls. Make sure to like if you like this video, and make sure to turn on post notifications if you want to see even more weather area content. And I hope you guys have a good day.